The legend of the girl on the curve is one of the most chilling roadside tales told by drivers across the world. Imagine driving down a dark, desolate highway when suddenly, on the edge of a dangerous curve, you spot a lone figure, a young girl, fragile-looking, dressed in white, drenched in rain or shrouded in the mist of the night. In that moment, everything changes. Some say she's a warning, a ghostly apparition that appears just before a deadly accident. Others believe she's a lost soul, trapped in that place, reliving her tragic end over and over again. Over the years, many drivers have claimed to see her and lived to tell the tale. Some narrowly avoided a fatal crash thanks to her silent warning, while others have had encounters so strange and unsettling that they vowed never to drive those roads again. In this video, we bring you some of the most terrifying stories from people who came face to face with the girl on the curve. Is it just a legend, or is there something more to this figure that haunts the shadows of the most treacherous roads? Get ready to hear the stories that left an indelible mark on those who survived them.
My name is Frank, and I've spent my whole life on the road, hauling freight across the U.S. I'm not one for ghost stories or paranormal tales. To me, the highway has always been a lonely but safe place. That all changed on a cold winter night when my encounter with the curves girl made me question everything I thought I knew. I was driving down a rural highway in Arizona, near the New Mexico border. It was an isolated route, winding through mountains and cliffs. It was just past 3 a.m., and the cold was creeping into the cab despite the heater running. The road was empty, only the hum of the engine and the wind to keep me company. As I approached a sharp bend in the road, I spotted something up ahead on the side. It was a small figure standing next to the guardrail near a warning sign for a dangerous curve. At first, I thought it was someone having car trouble, maybe a broken-down vehicle. But as I got closer, I realized it was a young girl. She was wearing a long white dress, completely out of place on such a cold night. Her dark hair hung over part of her face, and she stood completely still, just staring at the road. A shiver ran down my spine, but my instincts as a driver kicked in, and I hit the brake. I rolled down the window and called out, asking if she was okay. She didn't answer. Instead, she slowly lifted her arm and pointed toward the bend in the road, warning me to be careful. Something told me that the curve was more dangerous than it appeared. Slowing down even more, I rounded the bend cautiously, and that's when I saw it. Ice coated the asphalt, invisible until you were already on it. Two cars lay wrecked in the middle of the road from a recent collision, their mangled metal gleaming in my headlights. If I hadn't slowed down, I would have plowed right into them. My heart pounded as I brought the truck to a stop just in time, only a few feet from the wreckage. The scene felt eerie. Silent night, wrecked cars, and my breath fogging up in the cold air. I immediately checked my rearview mirror, searching for the girl. But she was gone. The road behind me was empty, not a trace of anyone. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. I got out of the cab to check if anyone in the cars needed help, but the wreck was old, frozen in time. There was no one alive there. Returning to my truck, I glanced back at the curve, and to my shock, I saw her again. The girl stood far off in the distance, just at the edge of the bend. But this time, she wasn't warning me. She was just watching. I scrambled back into my cab, slammed the door, and sped off, not stopping until I reached the next town. I couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone had saved me that night. When I told other truckers at the rest stop what had happened, a few nodded with knowing looks. "You've seen her," one old-timer said, his face grim. "The curves girl. They say she appears to warn those who are about to have an accident. Not everyone gets so lucky. I've never taken that highway again. And now, whenever I approach a sharp bend on a lonely road, I find myself glancing at the side, half expecting to see a small, silent figure. Because deep down, I know she's still out there, watching the road, waiting to warn another driver before it's too late."
I've been a trucker for over 20 years. Late-night drives on empty highways are part of the job, and nothing ever fazed me, until one night changed everything. My name is Luis, and this is the story of the night I encountered La Nina de la Cava. It was a typical evening, and I had picked up a long haul in southern Texas. I was driving through the rural backroads, trying to shave off some time by avoiding the interstate. It was one of those desolate highways that wind through nowhere, barely lit by the moon. There were no cars, no streetlights, just me and the road. Around midnight, I was approaching a sharp curve. The road had been straight for miles, and this sudden twist caught me by surprise. As I slowed down to take the turn, I saw her. Standing on the shoulder, right at the edge of the curve, was a young girl. She was wearing a simple white dress, and her long black hair fell over her face, but I could tell she was looking directly at me. There was something unnatural about her stillness, and yet, for a moment, I thought she must be lost or in trouble. My truck slowed to a crawl as I passed her. I rolled down the window and called out, asking if she needed help. She didn't move. Her eyes, or what I could see of them through her hair, never left me. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, she raised her hand and pointed down the road, toward the bend. Her movement was mechanical, almost unnatural, but the message was clear. I hesitated for a second, goosebumps creeping up my arms. Something inside me told me to listen. I eased the truck around the bend, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. That's when I saw it, barely in time. A large section of the road was washed out, leaving a steep drop into a ravine. If I had taken the curve at full speed, I would have gone over the edge. My heart pounded in my chest as I skidded to a stop, my tires only inches from disaster. I sat there for a moment, trying to catch my breath, my mind racing. Then I remembered the girl. I turned my head back toward the curve, but she was gone. The road behind me was completely empty. No sign of her anywhere. I drove carefully into the next town, still shaken by what had just happened. At the local diner, I told the waitress about the girl I'd seen on the road. Her face went pale. "That's La Nina de la Cava," she whispered. "They say she appears to warn drivers before something terrible happens on those roads. Not everyone listens to her. Those who don't, they never come back. I've driven countless miles since that night, but I'll never forget her. The girl on the curve, the warning that saved my life. Some say she's a ghost, others say she's a guardian spirit. All I know is, that night could have been my last. If you ever find yourself driving down a dark, lonely road, and you see a girl in white standing by a curve, slow down, listen to her. She might just be trying to save you."